starting Cardiff. What a sickener.
Yeah, it was. On a few fronts, obviously. Test rugby at the best of times away from home in the Six Nations is hard with 15 men, and then you reduce yourself by one for 67 minutes of the contest. It makes it increasingly more challenging. So if you kind of take the first section where it was a little bit of a slow start, and even though we had good possession, it felt as though probably the momentum, the early exchanges were with Wales, although it was a 3-point game by the time Peter O'Mahony got sent off. But then, you flip the remaining 67 minutes, and so many positives to take out of it on the back of hard graft and spirited performance, individuals really stepping up. Tyke Furlong coming back and forgotten what we've been missing with him. It was so exciting. We thought Andrew Porter had done a phenomenal job until you see the extra skill set that Furlong provides. So it's a sickener because we put ourselves in a position, first of all, to see the game out, and then we gave up some sloppy tries, but then not giving ourselves one final shot in the corner when we'd done all that hard graft is a real sickener and a pretty bitter pill for Andy Farrell to have to swallow, with the knowledge that we've got an in-form France team coming to the Aviva Stadium this weekend.
Yes, and on my point about the French being fresh and well rested by comparison with the Irish, who after yesterday, will have a lot of sore bodies. That was test match rugby and all its physicality laid bare. You've been through games akin to that. It's what, Wednesday, Thursday before you feel yourself again?
Yeah, and well, it obviously depends on what how old the bones are as well, and what sort of mileage you've got on the clock as well. There'll be some guys, or indeed what position you're playing. You think about the likes of Cian Healy, that must be in his 14th or 15th season. He put in a good 50-minute shift. So I'd only anticipate he's always been a bit of a freak athlete, but you'd have to imagine the cumulative effect of that much test rugby over 100 test matches is going to take effect on your recovery. And on top of everything, everyone well knows that when you win a game, the body never feels quite as bad as when you lose one. So the recovery becomes more important now, but more difficult at the same time, more challenging because of the mood in the camp, because of the disappointment in the camp. But on the flip side, whenever you win a game, your coach is always trying to keep you in check as to things you can improve on. I think Andy Farrell will be flipping that and talking about, in this loss, so many good things were done. And so many, people really put their hand up and turned out some really impressive individual performances. I think you have to remember as well with Test Rugby, when you lose someone for 67 minutes, it's one of your main operators at line-out time, both for and opposition ball. He's our go-to guy. When it comes to rucking, he's one of our best jacklers of the ball. And every launch play that you have, it means you have to put one of your backs in to make sure you win the scrum. So you completely negates your ability to attack off set piece, which is a huge component of what Ireland have done for the last number of years. So straight away, you're eating into some of your quality platforms to be able to deliver some success. So yeah, very disappointing because it's a result-based business, but it was there for the taking, considering the tries that they offered up.
Yeah, and maybe damning of Wales as well, that against 14 men for 70 minutes, they didn't tear us open a bit more. For instance, Ronan O'Gara said 15-man Ireland beat Wales by 10. What's your take, in so much as we can be sure?
I think once that initial chess match had happened, I do feel as though Ireland are playing their way into the game. We know that they're a possession-based team. They still had huge possession. I didn't see the end of the game possession, but it was over 60% in the first half with one less man. So, that's going to, that's a hallmark of Irish teams these days. So I do feel as though with Peter O'Mahony on the pitch for 80 minutes that you'd have to have fancied Ireland. Think about that extra body in the defensive line, the extra spacings, and the extra, occasional turnover or nuisance in the ruck. all of those aspects add up to the end result. And I think what's so hard is when they reflect on it and look at that game, you think about that George North try that was against the run of play from Ireland trying to play maybe a bit of a loose offload from Gary Ringrose, and then compounded issue with Conor Murray not just trying to kill the ball and offload to Ian Henderson, who then also knocks it on. And 2 phases later, out of nowhere, with the penalty advantage, George North is running in for a pretty easy try. That's a real sickener. That takes the wind out of your sails. And it was kind of against the run of play too. And when you've done all that work in the build up to it for, I don't know what time that was, but for 50, 55, 60 minutes, and the momentum's with you, that can be such a swinger. And it ends up being because Wales then got their tails up.
The defining moment of the match on 13 minutes, Peter O'Mahony's red card. You have cleared out your fair share of rooks. Talk us through his and then your perspective on the whole thing, watching from afar. But so he's trying to lay down a marker. Yeah,
like trying to get into Pete's head. He's a physical player, uncompromising. Tom Francis has made a tackle, and then he's sort of floating around the ruck, trying to be a bit of a nuisance. I think Pete's probably just trying to tell him that if you do that again, you're gonna know about it. The problem is he stepped beyond the line, and we know now that any head collisions, also the manner in which his arm is cocked as well, makes it a kind of a double negative. If he's got it in a position where it looks like a genuine clear out, it might just be perceived as being mistimed or misplaced, whereas it looks as though there's a bit of intent with it, unfortunately. And Pete can't have any issues with being red carded. Once you saw the initial replay, it was clear as day, and very disappointing from his perspective, from Ireland's perspective. We also have to deal now with no Peter O'Mahony for certainly the next couple of games, and it's it must be hard. I've never been sent off in my career, but it must be hard watching as your team play their way back into it, but then lose it kind of towards in the last quarter, when you know that your efforts would have been rewarding to the team. So it's a real sickener from the collective and from the individual perspective.
Yeah, I'm sure he's in the absolute horrors looking back on it. Wayne Barnes talked about it being high, about it being dangerous, and he mentioned the chicken wing, the arm cocked, as you said. What's the logic of the arm cocked?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know. It's again, you're trying to get into Pete's head with it. He was just trying to come in and obviously, I'm sure there was no intent with trying to actually hit him in the head, but when you're doing that and trying to be excessively physical, you have to make sure that you get your timing right and you get your point of contact right, and it's non-negotiable anymore. And that they're the situation, particularly when you've got time coming into the ruck. That wasn't a kind of a snap decision. He had a lead into it, and he was able to target Francis, but he got it wrong and paid the price.
So how would you have had your arm going into a ruck generally?
In a perfect world, you have it, up by your side, as if it's almost like you're going in to make a tackle as well. If you have it in a tackling position, you stand some sort of chance, because technically you're meant to be grasping onto the individual to try and drive them through. It's not just a collision base and we see it in rucks the whole time. Players fly in and just using their shoulder. We saw actually a brilliant clear out. So it was on the letter of the law, the question marks, the legitimacy of it from Cian Healy for the Byrne try, but when Ken Owens came in, slid in illegally, and Cian Healy came in. And I don't think his arm was cocked, but he came in and just shoulder barged him out of it. A phenomenal clear out, something that's never going to get picked up on. But on the ruling and the technicality, you're meant to bind onto the individual rather than just using shoulder barge. So it's that nuance of the game that World Rugby are still trying to work out, because we've seen sendings off in the past. We saw one of the Barrett brothers getting sent off for a head collision on Michael Hooper. Was it not this year's Tri-Nate or Super Championship, but the previous year? And it's a really tough one, because when someone leads with their head close to the line, what are you meant to do? Now that was again, adjudicated as a red card, and rightly so. But Pete can't have any problems with his one. It was one of the more clear red cards, and I don't know what he said to Wayne Barnes coming off, but he just couldn't have had any complaints. And on reflection, he'll absolutely agree with the referee's decision.
Ireland gave away 4 penalties in the first 13 minutes. 3 of them were courtesy of Peter O'Mahony. And he was sent off against Scarlets in October. He got 2 yellow cards. There was an off-the-ball tackle, and then he went into the ruck with the shoulder again against Scarlets. So that's a bit of a trend. I mean, if he was 22, we'd be saying, look, he'll get to grips with what he can do and what he can't do. But he's 32 years of age, and we saw him fired up before kick-off. He's a leader in that way, but there's a point where if in 13 minutes you're giving away 4 penalties, getting a red card, and you've already been sent off this season, you probably have to have a sit down and a think about things and reflect on finding a better balance.
Yeah, well, he's obviously getting he's channeling that aggression in a negative way in those situations. The yellow card or the red card earlier on the season, that one of the yellow cards might have been perceived as being a little bit soft. The second one definitely wasn't. And this is as blatant a red card as you're likely to get. There's very few people, even on social media, trying to put up a case for him. I think I saw one individual saying it's only a yellow card. I don't know what world that's a yellow card, and certainly not this one that we play in anymore. And we talk about protecting players and duty of care to players, particularly when they're in uncompromising positions, whether they're legal or not, or whether they're trying to be a nuisance. You can't take the law into your own hand. You can hurt them, but you got to hurt them legally and remind them that that's not the place that they can be. And sometimes that target isn't there. Sometimes you can't get that shot on their body, so you got to let it go and wait for the next opportunity when they're lying somewhere illegally, to make sure you hit them somewhere below their shoulder line. Try and get a good shot into ribs or something where they leave themselves open, and just to let them know. And actually there's some verbals afterwards. I was watching Pete, we had a little word to Thomas Francis as well about, you don't do that again. You get away from our ruck ball. But it must have been something that he looked up and smiled and thought, you're in trouble here anyway. I don't know what the verbals are about.
Well, he appealed straight away to Barnes. Barnes, interestingly, said, no, unavoidable. But then the replay did Peter O'Mahony no favours.
Why we have TMOs, right? Sometimes referees want to see the best case scenario, and that's why we got another set of eyes where they're able to pick the referee up on little things that they've missed. That's why we have 4 referees ultimately, the 2 assistants, the man in charge, but also that set of eyes to be able to let the game carry on, but to pull the ref up on foul play. And so I think they dealt with it really well. It's okay. I'm okay with Wayne Barnes thinking that it was incorrect. Referees won't get every collision right, and particularly they're trying to speed up the pace of the game. So that's why he's got a second set of eyes in a booth somewhere to go, no, hang on, let's come back to that. It's a pity he didn't come back to the Johnny Williams one a little bit later on, but I don't think that was a red card, I have to say.
What was that, yellow?
Well, you know what? I don't think you could properly guarantee that was a collision direct to Gary Ringrose head from the angles that we saw. I think he had this massive head jolt, but on the angle that we saw, even in slow-mo, the one from behind Gary Ringrose, you see his head shooting back, but you can't technically see the point of contact. Now, the point of contact is, first of all, on the jaw, it's a red card. I don't think there's the mitigation of body height is any good, or late change of direction. I think a very generous referee might consider one of those 2 and give a yellow card. But I think it's impossible on the basis of the angles that we saw. I'm sure there were other angles that the referee or the TMO never called on, and maybe he saw them and decided there was no case to answer. But it looked really bad, and it felt as though it warranted a kind of a minute of viewing to make sure that if you're going to be sending Pete off for his incident, that we get all decisions correct. So I don't know whether there's going to be anything that will come of that, but again, like I said, on the footage that we saw, you couldn't guarantee anything.